We're live to
Here we
talk
go
about
again.
what's that?
Here we go again.
Here we go again. And today we begin a new series,
Yes,
which will take three parts, and it's of ancient mysteries. Today being Kailasa Temple.
that's correct.
I didn't know about this place uh, until you mentioned it about 2 weeks ago. So why don't you go ahead and open up? Where is it and what is it?
It's in a remote area of India. Yeah, they call it Kailasa Temple, but it's part of a series of caves. Okay, they
Okay.
call it Kailasa Caves. Um, it's just an ancient marvel of engineering,
The Ellora Caves.
the Ellora Caves.
Yeah.
So just to put it in perspective, because I had to read several, I've been reading about this for a while, because I'm a nerd when it comes to these things of mysteries. So it's difficult. You got to pick from different areas, but basically, what it is it's a hillside, and there is 100 plus caves that have been carved into this hillside, and they call it the Ellora Cave Complex. Okay. Out of those 100 caves, only 34 of them or 33 of them are available for people like you and me to view them. Okay, all the others are sealed off. And from my understanding, they're also, the archaeologists are going to seal these next caves too. And so the caves are numbered, and the Kailasa cave has the number 16 with it. So it's cave number 16.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little deceiving because it's the largest single, it's the largest monolithic carving in the world, which means it was carved from one stone. Okay? So there's no room for error. And then the other thing that you mentioned the other day that you learned, how was it carved?
It was from they carved it from the top down,
Correct.
which is the only one of all these caves so far that the 34 that I guess have been dug
Open to
out,
the public. Yeah.
open to the public, that was carved that way. So
Correct.
it's why did they go from the top down, which apparently is a lot more difficult than carving into the cave.
Right. So the rest of them apparently were carved into the cave. Okay. But the Kailasa temple, because it is a temple, it's about, you know, 200 feet long by 100 feet. I mean, mile? Is it miles?
But feet,
It's
feet.
feet.
Yeah.
200 feet long by 100 feet wide. And it's got one column, okay, that is 100 feet tall. And so if you carve that from the top down, just imagine there's just no room for mistake. You just can't make a mistake. You mess everything up. You have to have such a precision. And, the archaeologists say that this was built in 18 years. Okay. The amount of rock that has been removed is to the tune of 400,000 tons. And till this day, nobody has found it. Nobody knows where it's gone. So, in order to build this in 18 years, you would have to carve and quarry out or take out approximately 4 to 5 tons per hour. Something like it's in, it's, I'm here to tell you today, we could not build this temple with the technology that we have today. We just could not do it.
Yeah, it's when you look at the pictures and you see how intricate the carvings are,
That's
because it's
another thing.
it's not just that you carved, that's already amazing, but then the stories that are being told by the carvings.
Exactly.
Now, there's other
And,
carved
and the
cities.
carvings are precision carvings. They are immaculate. I mean, they look fantastic. That in itself had to take how many years?
Right.
I mean, so, I'm not trying to create issues, but there's no way that archaeologists can say with a straight face that this was carved with hammers and chisels and things like this. This is advanced technology that we don't possess today. Period. That's
Yeah,
my belief, and
we
it's
just
it's
don't
my opinion.
we don't understand how they did it because they're saying hammer and chisel. Uh,
How do you do it?
Now apparently some of the stories in the carvings have to do with some sort of technology.
Right. So there's a tale that um, the king at that time, his wife got became ill, and so he prayed to the god Shiva, because the temple is dedicated. This temple is dedicated to the god Shiva. Okay, and I think that the king was Krishna the first. And so in the tale, it goes that his wife got very ill and he was very much in love with her and he didn't want her to die. So he prays to the god Shiva and says, look, if you bring health to my wife, I will build you the most glorious temple. And sure enough, she recovered. So then he started building the temple. And the story goes that when Krishna the first saw this is going to be a huge undertaking, that he asked for celestial help, okay? And it was given to him. And in this tale, the building, the Kailasa Temple was built in 7 days. And it's a very nice story. It's a beautiful story about love and resilience and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
You should look into it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, in 1 week it was built.
Right.
So,
According to this tale.
but and also that apparently the Indian mythology, is it Hindu mythology,
Mhm.
also talks about some sort of technology that allowed them to, I guess, get rid of the rock so quickly. But there's no proof of any of this stuff, and that's why it's difficult. I saw, and we'll link it. I saw a few videos on YouTube. One in particular, it was a guy from Britain that was walking through. I'm not sure if you saw that one.
No.
Went through the whole temple for like 30 minutes, and he kept looking for the word he was using was block work. He kept looking for block work as if it was like some sort of cement blocks that were behind and then they carved into them somehow. But no, he kept saying, look, the lines, that the cracks in the temple look natural. They're not like straight line cracks. They go along, a natural type of crack. So I don't know if what his background was, but he seemed to know a lot about it. And he's like, look, and then he shows areas of the temple where there's steps that have blocks, and it's clear that that was added later on to preserve the temple somewhat. But there's no block work, and that's the one of the amazing things about it is that it's all cut from one rock.
Yeah, and it's been cut from top to bottom.
Why? Why did they do it that way?
Your guess is as good as mine. Anybody that says that they know, they're pulling our legs because,
Yeah.
you know, and not only that, um, the site has trim. I mean, for example, there's acoustic properties to this particular temple, where normally, when you build something made out of rock and you produce a sound, it would get absorbed by the rock. In this particular case, they have acoustic properties where if you produce a sound, it will vibrate and it will continue the sound in a very much rhythmic method. Okay? And so the temple has acoustic properties like if it was built with advanced technology. For example, amphitheaters of today, okay,
Mm-hmm.
are built with technology to amplify the sound waves, right? because that way you can bring in an orchestra and they can, resonate. Okay. Well, the same thing is happening here. The people that are in the know, they have measured the chambers, and you've got ceilings, okay, made with convex um, portions that allow the sound to hit and vibrate out. You've got ceilings that are made that way. You've got chambers that have specific dimensions, okay, that seem to take in this sound and allow it to vibrate, okay, and resonate. Um, and they're talking about acoustic effects that can allow you to have sound vibrations, which it's factual if you read into it that they influence our physical and our mental health. Okay. All you have to do is, if you don't believe in waves, just get, something and put it in the microwave and let it heat up. And then, a few seconds later, you bring something out that's very, very hot. Well, how did it get done? Those are microwaves. So if you don't believe in some of this stuff, just look at your microwave. You have it in your own kitchen. I think every kitchen in America has a microwave. Okay. Look at your cell phone. So the fact that waves can travel
Yeah.
and produce effects is not something that needs to be proven. That is a fact. So
Yeah.
it's tremendous. It's an architectural masterpiece that cannot be duplicated with the
Another,
technology that we have today.
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the pictures and everything. Now, one thing I thought was really interesting about it was the aerial view of it, which was brought up multiple times as I was trying to look into this, is that you can actually see it from the sky. And there's actually, I guess, some sort of monument. What are they? Four creatures,
4 lions
four lions.
on the rooftop with one of their legs raised. Okay, so you have 4 lions on the rooftop with one of their legs raised. So when you take an aerial view of it, it seems to form an X,
Yeah.
okay, from, you know, the air, from space, right? So it seems to form an X, like it's a landing mark, not necessarily for landing, but to let people know, I'm here. I'm the Kailasa Temple, and I'm here. So it forms a type of X. And you can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's many places in the world. One of them is the Nazca lines,
Right.
where they're saying, how did the people that put these indigenous people, how did they, like, why did they create these Nazca lines, these artwork for some to be seen from the aerial view? Be-
So if you're walking the Nazca lines, they don't seem to be much of anything. Okay? The only way that the Nazca lines can be interpreted is from the air. And
and they're
that's how they
different
were actually
animals.
found, actually. There was a guy, flying a plane, and he flew over them and he saw them and he was mesmerized by it, and then he spread the word, and that's how they were found. But if you're walking them on the ground, they just seem like indentations, and uh, you have no idea that they interconnect and they form, like an astronaut or spiders or
Yeah,
monkeys, and they form all kinds of different shapes.
and
So
that's
that's
in
also a mystery that,
Peru.
yes.
Yeah. So there's different places in the world where from aerial, but in that time we don't know of any aerial the ability to see things from an aerial view,
Right,
right?
where they're not supposed to have planes or anything like that.
In that time.
Yeah.
Um yeah, this place is amazing.
Oh,
How much they carved out, where they put the rock. Um
well, where they put the rock? Let's look at that for a sec. You're talking about 400,000 tons of rock.
yeah, I
Where
can't
did it
fathom that.
go? I think it's equivalent to 3 million cubic feet. So, to put it in perspective, any of you that have gone to see the Great Pyramid of Egypt, you can take the Great Pyramid of Egypt and just get rid of it, and that would not equal the extent of the number of rocks that have been carved out. You would still have like another million cubic feet. So you can just wipe out and this, you know, I'm thinking about these things, right? As I've read before. And so you can, I don't want to say you can take all three of them and wipe them out because I haven't done the math, but most certainly, you can take the large pyramid of Egypt and just disappear it into oblivion,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't begin uh, to have all the rock that have been carved out. And up to today, they haven't been able to find it. It's not like they used it to build another temple. That is not the case, according to what I have read. And so it's a huge mystery.
Yeah.
How do they do it? And where did they put all that stuff? Because as you build something in today's day and age,
Mm-hmm.
there's all kinds of debris that's left behind that needs to be towed away, that needs to be taken away.
Now, it's made from basalt rock,
Correct.
which I'm just gonna look that up real quick. Basalt is aphantic, no, an aphanitic extrusive igneous rock formed from the rapid cooling of low viscosity lava rich in magnesium and iron exposed at or very near the surface of a rocky planet or moon. More than 90% of all volcanic rock on Earth is basalt. So it's volcanic rock.
Yes. But for example, if you compare it to Derinkuyu,
Turkey.
okay, Turkey, which we did a podcast on,
Yes.
this type of rock in this Kailasa Caves, it's harder than the Derinkuyu. And not just a little harder, apparently much more hard. And so it's not easy to do. And everything is built out of that. So that pillar that I told you about initially, that's about 100 feet tall, that's made out of that. That had to be carved from the top down, and you've got 100 feet. So that means that you just think for a second like 100-foot obelisk kind of thing. It's not an obelisk, but it's a pillar.
Yeah.
But you had to carve down, so you had to carve everything around it out and away.
Right.
So it's
It not only that,
mind-boggling.
it's 3 stories
Yeah,
and it has bridges that connect, I guess, the different parts of the temple
correct.
and
And underground channels and
underground tunnels.
tunnels and
How on earth did they? So the archaeologists conventional say that this was built, what, around 700-800 BC? I'm
yeah,
sorry, 700 AD.
yeah.
I think it was
I
around that
think
time. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
like 8th century, something like
Mhm.
that. Um, but how did they design it? Because if they're saying, "Hey, we're gonna cut it from the top down," I imagine everything had to be pre-planned.
Of course,
Like all the architects and engineers had to pre-plan because
of course.
how big do you make the bridge so that it actually can stay up? And
Right.
apparently, I think there's still one of the bridges that is there. I think one of them is no longer. I don't know if it fell down or what, but
Not sure.
even that pillar that is 80 feet tall, like they had to design how big it should be at the base and how tall it can be and all that.
It's mind-boggling, Mike.
They were engineers. They were architects and engineers, I would imagine.
It's incredible. Look, in order to build this thing with the characteristics that it has, I already talked a little bit about the acoustic, right? So it says it has advanced acoustics in the ambience. It's extremely complex. You can take an echo of a sound and make it vibrate through the chambers and the structure. Okay? They do what's called chanting echoes. The vibration, according to the people that hear it, is completely astonishing. Okay? Um, so it's that is the acoustic part of it. But if you talk about the drainage system, did you read about the drainage system?
Yeah. Yeah.
The drainage system that the Kailasa Temple has, it's absolutely mind-boggling because think about it. You're building it from the top down. So we already talked about acoustics. Now let's talk about drainage. Drainage is so important that over the millennium, it would disintegrate this temple. If you have water accumulation, if you have stagnant water, so these drainage systems have been built into the structure so that they assimilate and not even be visually uh, ugly. Okay, I forget the word I want to use, but so they take the water from the rooftops and from the chambers, and they take it away from the temple
Yeah.
in the most smooth,
There's
efficient.
channels.
There's channels, and just think about it. The grade that you have to have is mind-boggling because the grade cannot exceed, like millimeters in some cases, depending on the gravity from where the water's coming from high up to where it starts reaching the lower levels and it begins to slow down by inertia. So the grade that these channels need to have are just about perfect. And this was done all in the same amount of, the carving coming down. There's no room for mistake. It is so precise.
Yeah.
We cannot do it today. You can talk to any civil engineer and give him the plans and tell him, hey, can you do this? And I bet you he'll tell you, I don't think we can, not even if and not only that, there are some chambers where people, normal human beings the size of us, are not able to enter. So how was that
They're too
carved?
small. They're
They're
too
too small.
Yeah.
So how was that done? How was that accomplished?
So, I mean, we've talked about what an amazing feat of architecture it is. It, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add in there, but I want to know, what do you think? How do you think this was built? You know? And the other thing that's interesting is, if you look at the carvings along the walls, I noticed there were elephants, there's monkeys, there's lions, there's these deities,
Yeah.
which are like gods, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
of Hinduism, that are all along the walls. And then there's this story that's carved as well, a certain story. The way I understood it was like kind of like a story in the Bible. It's like a story in the Hindu religion, a very common story, that was carved also into the wall. So, what were they? It was dedicated, like you said, to the Lord Shiva. Uh, what were they trying to accomplish here? And how did they do it?
Well, so this is a podcast to motivate and stimulate the young minds and old minds and everybody's mind.
Curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity for all our subscribers to read about it and share it. And it's just a wonder of our world, right? It
Yeah.
belongs to all of us. So I'll say this: India, the country of India, it's a tremendous, tremendous country filled with hundreds, if not thousands, of unexplained temples. We picked this one because it happens to be very special, because it's the biggest monolithic temple ever built, the largest in the world. Okay? And so we want to pick something that separates, let's say, what we're talking about in our podcast from something else. But there are so many things in India that are absolutely incredible, fantastic, tremendous, mind boggling. Okay. that cannot be explained um, using normal rudimentary thinking. So I think that when we're looking at things like this, we try to figure out how we could do it or put ourselves in the picture. And I think that by putting ourselves in the picture, we limit tremendously what could have happened before. So if you look at the Hindu, the in, the country of India has tremendous history, and these folks have passed it down first by word of mouth and then into writing. Okay, so there is an Indian mythology that's talking about four um, sections in the beginning of the world, and each section is supposed to be like, now this is mythical, 2.6 billion years, and I'm gonna mispronounce it, but it's called the Saijag, the Tetranyjag, the Laprijag, and Kaligyujag, and each one of these segments in the history of the world, it brings that particular civilization to an end,
Hmm.
and then it begins again. And all this is mythology, but it's written. And I know for a fact that there are about 28 million Sanskrit writings, 28 million that are ready to be translated, and they haven't been translated. And in there, apparently, there's reference to flying machines like Vivanas, time travel, all kinds of stuff that'll blow your mind. And so, you know, this was made definitely to honor the god Shiva, and you can see that plainly. And how they made it, I believe we don't know. Okay? And anybody that says that they do, I would think twice about it, because I really don't I really don't see us being able to build something like this with the technology that we have today. We can't build the pyramid of Egypt with the technology that we have today.
Yeah.
You know, everything is so precise, and those chambers, and you got to remember, some of these rocks weigh a lot, have a lot of weight. So why did they do it? I think it was I think there's more to us than meets the eye. I think there is a transcendental uh, lifting of spirituality, that maybe something of this was done. Maybe it has some healing properties with the acoustic uh, vibration and chambers that are there, you know. Um, I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's a huge mystery. It's tremendous, and if anybody can go see it, I would love to be able to go to India. If I go to India, I would probably have to stay there 2, 3 years
Yeah.
to travel the country and see all this. India is such a incredible.
So much culture,
Oh,
history.
and
Now,
having said that, throughout the world you see things,
sure.
because there's a lot of stuff in Ireland that's totally unexplained. There's a lot of stuff in England,
Yeah, in
uh,
many parts of the world.
even here in
Yeah.
Arizona. They're constantly finding things.
Now, there was a story that somebody and some sort of there was an attempt to disfigure the temple. Uh,
Destroy it.
yeah, to destroy it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that there were what 1,000 men there for 3 years, and
correct. The son of Saladin. I
he
forget his name right now, but the son of Saladin wanted to destroy the temple, so he sent an army of 1,000 men that worked diligently for 3 years to try to destroy this temple, and they actually did minimal amount of damage.
they disfigured, I guess, some of the faces of
Correct.
different deities, and the other cool thing is all those elephants. There's like life-size elephants that are carved in, and that's
Crazy.
still based. That's still on one rock. They carved around this elephant, and then there's also the base of that structure is all, it looks as if it's sitting on the back of elephants.
Right. So it's a mystical type of representation that they're carrying the city of the Lord on their backs. And that's another story in and of itself.
Right.
They so the Kailasa Temple has underground channels and uh, passageways. And if you go into mythology of India, they're saying that it is the opening to Shangri-La. Okay, and Shangri-La is, the city of wonderful things and utopia, and it's supposed to be off the mountains of Tibet. So all that area, it's filled with mystical history,
Mm-hmm.
which is beautiful. And if you start reading about all that and you get caught into it, then you, like me, spend a lot of nights not sleeping early, and
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful thing. I love it, and I there's people out there that have made a career of doing this,
Studying it.
of
Yeah.
studying it, like Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
He's and many others like the Billy, I forget his last name right now, but these.
Corsetti. Billy Corsetti, I think.
No,
No.
that's Jimmy.
Oh, Jimmy Corsetti. Yeah.
Billy is another guy that's I've been
Ancient Architects.
maybe so.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's really good, and you can look at these people and learn a tremendous amount. But um, it really sets your mind thinking, because if you try to build a simple sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that a person that can look at a piece of rock and then get a hammer and chisel and start chiseling away, and then it makes a bear, or makes an angel, or makes one of these, lamasus.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that person is extremely gifted, because you have to see it in the eye of your mind first before you put it on actual rock, right? So how do they do this? How do they take, because you're talking about drainage, and we barely touched on it, but you're talking about water manipulation. You're talking about hydraulics.
Yeah.
People that were experts in hydraulics, okay? People that were experts in acoustic manipulation, where that amphitheaters today are built with such things so that the sounds can vibrate, and
Yeah.
you
No.
got things that bounce off one wall and you can hear it 20 feet away, um, where normally a rock structure will absorb the sound. So it's a tremendous feat of engineering.
Yeah. And I mean, just looking at the pictures, but I was looking here because inside the temple, because a lot of what's amazing is outside, and it's amazing that that's still preserved, the outside, because of the elements. But the
Sure, they
inside
have
of,
typhoons, tremendous amounts of rain that come in. And what archaeologists are saying is that the Indian monks, because the typhoon season, they were stuck there, that they ended up
that
building
they
this
built
thing.
it. Yeah.
But I
Um,
think that's
the
it's
inside also is very interesting because the outside's beautiful, but the inside, and there's um at the end of the hall is the vestibule of this shrine. And so there's a the I guess the lingam, which represents creativity for them. There's like a shrine
Mhm.
of some sort inside the temple too. Um
It's tremendous.
so
How do these people do this with little hammers, and it's
yeah, no, it's amazing. I think that definitely it's worth looking into. I'm glad you mentioned it to me because I really didn't know anything about this temple, Kailasa Temple.
Mhm.
And it does take you into the Hindu mythology
Right.
because the only way that you can explain this is through the mythology. And we met a gentleman the other day who is from Singapore, right?
Oh yeah,
Singapore.
I think
And
so.
I believe so. And we began talking to him, and he was explaining about some of the amazing architecture, I guess, in that part of the world as well. We had brought up Angkor Wat to him, but that's Cambodia.
So we did a
But
podcast on Angkor Wat
yes,
that,
the hydraulic city.
that
We'll link it.
we'll link it.
And but this gentleman that we met was saying that in Singapore there's amazing temples and amazing things, but he started to explain some of the mythology
It's beautiful.
that they believe in, and it's the only way that there's any sort of explanation, I guess, for some of what has been built, and some of is through this mythology. It's very like present in their culture, and I think like growing up here in the United States, oh, I think we were kind of
Sheltered?
stripped of any sort of mythology. I mean, you heard of Greek mythology, but like I think that the Native Americans here in
Oh,
the United States had,
that's why in Arizona there's so many special places there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, but you don't hear of any of that growing up here. Any kind of like mythology of how certain things were done. But over there, you look at these amazing structures and architecture, and I guess you have to rely on some sort of mythology from back then, and maybe there's truth to that. That's what Graham Hancock's always saying. He's like, the stories that were passed down, and there's some truth.
there
We
is
shouldn't
some
just
truth.
disregard those stories.
Right. You just can't disregard them completely.
Right.
You know, when you go visit one of these sites, you realize how insignificant you are as a human being. Okay? Because in the whole scheme of things and the number of years that we live, how insignificant we are. So that's one portion of it, okay? But we are part of a huge universe. And so the other side of it is that if you have a noble thought and you carry it through, you can do a lot of good. So even though as insignificant as you are, you still have the strength and the power to produce a lot of good, and it's all about the energy that you let out. Okay, I don't want people to think I'm crazy or anything like this, but you definitely accomplish, I think, a lot more in life with a positive view and energy than you do with a negative view,
Sure.
because um, it's my belief
Yeah.
anyway. But we're talking about Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat is called the hydraulic city. Okay, just think about drainage for a sec, because this is a huge thing in Kailasa Temple. If Angkor Wat didn't have that moat, okay, it would have never stood the test of time. Because keep this in mind, and I'm not a civil engineer, but I've done a lot of reading. Every time you build something, you have something called a shrinking factor. There's a certain degree that this thing starts sinking, because as you put more rock on top of it and you go up, you know, there, if you don't um, stabilize the ground that you're in, okay, you're gonna have what's called a shrinking ratio, okay? Angkor Wat defies that by having that moat around it, because the number of rocks that it was built with, it's continuously pushing that. Not to take into account, forget the fact that it rains a lot in that area, okay? And the channels that they made and the moat that they have produces an effect to push back on the rock and also fluctuate the city. So how did they do that?
Yeah, that's
And now
amazing.
let's take that and go to Kailasa, okay? And you're talking about a drainage system that takes the water from every place. You can see it when it rains a lot and the monsoon time comes, it just flows. And if you were to get in front of one of those water flows with the strength that it is, you'd be hard pressed to keep your stance. Okay, and you can see it through the channels. They come out like this. Some of them are huge. Some of them are intricately carved into the structure of the chamber itself, and you can barely see them on the sides, on the ground, and they go from different width to smaller width in a gradient.
Yeah.
I'm telling you here that This kind of
It's
water
engineering to the
distribution,
max. Yeah.
oh, it's scientific, extreme knowledge of water distribution, of hydraulics, of drainage. It would not be there if this scientifically proven drainage system was not built into it. It just would not be there.
Right.
Between water and sun, the water alone in that area would have destroyed it. So look into the drainage system. Flowering engineers and civil engineers, you will be marveled by this because, how did they do it? And how did they know about it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just a marvel of engineering. And the more I read about it, it's and too bad that they're going to close it down for the public. They don't, they're going to close it down. There's more than 100 caves. There's only 34 of them available for us to see. They're going to close those down, I believe. And the interesting part is that Kailasa is cave number 16, according to their numerology. And there's 12 caves that have been left unfinished. Why 12 caves unfinished? Why did they not finish them when they've done all the others? You know, and they carved from the top down. There's so many. The more
Only
you,
for Kailasa though.
huh?
Only
Only
for
for Kailas.
Kailas.
But the more you read, the more questions you have and the less answers.
Yeah.
Because the more you get into it, you realize
Yeah, and why aren't they allowing for more study of it? That's not good.
it's not good. In order
So
to get into the caves that are not been attributed to the 34 that are shown to regular people like you and me,
you gotta be an archaeologist.
you need to have a PhD, and you need to be a student of history and have a PhD in this and credentials in order
Yeah.
to get to caves that have been closed off.
Hmm.
So, I understand that people go in there and I want to take this little rock and I want to take that. And, we're 7 billion people. If 7 billion people visit the monument and take one little tiny rock, like
They
this
gotta
one,
preserve it.
right? You take one little tiny rock like that, 7 billion people, we're gonna there'll be no monument in no time at all. So I
Right,
do
right.
understand that there has to be some degree of control, but completely to seal it off, um, I don't know. Why don't they want us to find out, right?
Right. Well, thank you for sharing,
No,
about the
it's my pleasure.
Kailasa Temple, the Ellora Caves, and it's cool. And I'm excited for our next ancient mystery. We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna do a three-part. So this is the first one, and then we're gonna pick two other ancient mysteries and talk about them, and just hopefully, like you said, spark interest.
Make sure we send it to Art.
Yeah, that's right. And hopefully spark interest for people, because it's definitely makes you think bigger. And like you said, we're just a small speck in the whole scheme of things. Look what people have been able to, our ancestors been able to build and
Accomplish.
accomplish. So we got to get to work.
So we are insignificant. That'll keep something that if we think about it, it'll keep us grounded, right?
Yeah,
But we're still, as individuals, able to accomplish a lot of good.
sure.
So although
Sure.
we are insignificant, it's like the two sides of a coin.
Yeah.
You have the inner strength and to do good and bring about a tremendous amount. One person can move the world if they put their mind to it.
All right. Cool. Thank you.